Hey there, my name is Vesper Vance. I am 36 years old, and I work as a product manager right here in Louisville, Kentucky, or the Ville, as we call it. I have built a solid, stable life for myself and my 12-year-old son. But last month, in the dining room of the very house I bought with my own money, a family dinner that was supposed to be warm and soulful turned into something nobody saw coming. My father suddenly got up in my face and shouted, "You and that boy of yours ain't nothing but parasites." My mother didn't object. She didn't defend me. She just sat there, smiling and nodding her head like she was in church agreeing with the sermon. And the cruel irony was that they were currently living under my roof. I didn't cry. I didn't scream back. I just looked them dead in the eye and said one sentence that turned the whole room ice cold. From that moment on, everything started to crumble. Why did I have to confront my parents like this? What caused our relationship to fracture so deeply that it might never heal? And what would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts. Your story might be the message someone else needs to hear. To understand why I drew that line in the sand, I need to take you back to where it all started. I grew up in Louisville, in a modest 2-story house with floorboards that creaked, and a backyard that always smelled like freshly cut grass and honeysuckle. I was 18, full of dreams, when my world got flipped upside down. My grandfather had passed away a year earlier, leaving me $100,000 in his will. It was a safety net meant for my future, maybe for college or to start my life. I was excited, planning to study computer science, imagining a career where I could build something of my own. But my parents had other ideas. One humid summer afternoon, they called me into the living room. My father, Luther, was sitting in his old recliner with his arms crossed and his face stern. My mother, Odessa, was standing by the window, refusing to meet my eyes. They didn't waste time with small talk. "We need your inheritance," my father said, his voice as flat as if he were discussing the weather. I blinked, confused. "Need it for what?" I asked, my stomach doing flips. My mother finally looked at me, her expression a mix of guilt and determination. "Your brother has a chance to make it big," she said. "He is starting a construction business with your father, and they need capital to get it off the ground. It is a sure thing, Vesper. We will pay you back." Taven, my older brother, wasn't even there to explain himself. He was always their golden child, 2 years older, charming, the one they pinned all their hopes on. I was the afterthought, the one expected to just settle. I stood there, clutching my acceptance letter from the University of Louisville for their engineering program. "What about my college?" I asked, my voice trembling. My father shrugged. "You can get loans, Vesper. This is for the family." My mother nodded and added, "Tavon's business will set us all up for life. You will see." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. $100,000. My future had been redirected to a pipe dream where I had no voice and no vote. They didn't ask for permission, they just took it, promising to pay me back once the business took off. Spoiler alert, it never did. The construction company folded within a year. Bad contracts, worse decisions. My parents never mentioned paying me back, not even once. That night, I made a decision. I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, and the $500 I had saved from babysitting. I walked out of that house without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. No one called to see if I was okay. I was 18. I was alone, and I was determined to prove I didn't need them. I moved into a cramped apartment near campus, sharing it with 2 strangers to split the rent. I enrolled in university, but the tuition was a beast. I worked 3 jobs, waiting tables at a soul food diner, stocking shelves at Kroger, and tutoring math for high school kids at the community center. Some nights, I collapsed onto a mattress on the floor, too tired to eat. There were weeks when I lived on instant noodles and gas station coffee, stretching every penny to cover books or bills. I would look at my acceptance letter tacked to the wall and remind myself why I kept going. My parents' voices echoed in my head. This is for the family. Their version of family never included me. College was an exhausting grind, but I clawed my way through. I studied late into the night, fueled by spite and a stubborn need to prove them wrong. My parents called maybe twice a year, always with the same script. "How is school going?" my mother would ask with a distant tone. Before I could answer, she would switch the subject. "Your brother is working so hard on his new project." Tavon, always Tavon. Never a question about how I was paying rent or if I had enough to eat. I stopped expecting them to care. By my senior year, I was burnt out but unbreakable. I graduated top of my class with a degree in computer science and landed an entry-level job at a tech startup in downtown Louisville. For the first time, I could breathe. I paid off my student loans bit by bit, moved into a small but decent apartment, and started building a life. Then I met my ex-husband, Darius. He was a sharp colleague, funny, the kind of brother who seemed solid. We got married, had my son, and for a moment, I thought I had found stability. But life had other plans. When my son was 3, I found messages on Darius's phone, proof he had been stepping out on me for months. I didn't beg him to stay. I packed his bags, left them by the door, and told him, "Get out." He did, but he stayed in our son's life, sending money every month. That was enough for me. Those years turned me into someone who doesn't bend. I fought for every ounce of my success while my parents and Tavon drifted along on excuses. They never apologized for taking my inheritance. They never acknowledged the nights I went hungry. That betrayal planted a seed of resentment that grew in silence, waiting for the day I would face them again. At 36, I have built a life I am proud of. My job isn't just a paycheck. It is a testament to every night I spent studying, every shift I worked to put myself through school. I lead a team-building software people rely on, and I am damn good at it. My name holds weight in the industry, and that is something I earned, not something I inherited. I own a 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb with a mortgage I pay on time and a backyard where my son plays football. This life, this stability, is mine, built from scratch. My son Jelani is 12 now, and he is the center of my world. He has an infectious laugh that makes even my worst days bearable. Whether he is acing his math tests or begging me to let him stay up late for one more video game, I see so much of myself in him. The stubborn streak, the quiet determination. I make sure he knows he is enough, that he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. Every weekend we have a ritual, pizza night, a movie, and him telling me his dreams of being an astronaut. I would move mountains for that boy, and he knows it. He is my reason for everything. My parents, on the other hand, are a different story. After I left home at 18, they barely reached out. A birthday card here, a Christmas call there. They were always brief, always hollow. But in the last few years, their messages started to change. My mother would text, "How is work, Vesper?" Not because she cared, but as a segue to ask for money. "Your father's business isn't doing well," she would write. "Oh, Tavon is trying to start something new. Could you help?" The first time I sent a couple thousand, thinking it was a one-time thing. But the requests kept coming. 5,000 for car repairs, 10,000 for a business opportunity. I started saying no. Every time my mother's messages got sharper. "You are doing so well. You can't spare a little for the family?" My father called once, his voice raspy, saying, "We sacrificed a lot for you, Vesper." Sacrificed? What exactly? The inheritance they took? The years they ignored me? I stopped responding to most of their texts. I would see their names pop up on my phone, Odessa, Luther, and let the calls go to voicemail. Tavon, my brother, never called himself. He didn't need to. My parents were his mouthpiece. I knew they were still propping him up, still betting on his next big idea, while I was out here building my own life. It hurt, but I had learned to live with it. I had Jelani, my career, and a circle of friends who felt more like family than my own blood. One of those friends is Sloan, my best friend and financial advisor. She has been my rock since we met at a networking event 5 years ago. Sloan is the one who helped me buy my house, set up Jelani's college fund, and plan a future where I don't have to worry about money. She is direct, no nonsense, and always has my back. When I told her about my parents asking for money, she didn't sugarcoat it. "They are using you, girl," she said, her voice firm. You don't owe them a dime." Her words stuck with me, reinforcing the boundaries I had started to set. I thought I had found my balance. Work, Jelani, a life I could call mine. I wasn't looking for closure or reconciliation with my parents. I just wanted to move on. But then my mother's number flashed on my phone one night, her voice shaking with urgency. That call would drag me back into the chaos I had spent years escaping. That call came on a quiet Tuesday evening. I was helping Jelani with his math homework, his pencil scratching against a notebook as we sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed, and I looked at the screen. My mother's name. I hadn't spoken to her in months, not since her last text asking for $10,000 for some vague emergency. I let it ring, debating whether to ignore it, but something inside me stirred. Maybe guilt, maybe curiosity. I answered. Her voice was trembling, not the usual calculated tone she used when asking for cash. "Vesper, it is your father," she said. "He is sick. Very sick. We need you to come home." I froze. The word home hit me like a slap. Home. The house I had left at 18. The place where they had taken my inheritance without a second thought. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear, my heart racing. "What is wrong with him?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She hesitated, then said, "It is his heart. The doctors say he needs surgery, but we are in trouble. The bank is threatening to foreclose on the house. $300,000 of debt from your father's latest business venture." Her words were rushed, almost desperate, but I caught the familiar undertone. They needed something from me. I leaned back in my chair, looking at Jelani, who was watching me with those big, curious eyes. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. My mother didn't miss a beat. "Come back, Vesper. Talk to the bank. Maybe help us out. You are doing so well, and we are family." There it was, the same worn-out line she had used for years. Family. I wanted to laugh, but instead a lump formed in my throat. I told her I would think about it and hung up, my mind spinning. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch, a glass of untouched wine on the coffee table, replaying her words. My father sick, the house at risk, $300,000. It wasn't just about money. It was the weight of everything I had buried since I left. Part of me wanted to ignore them, let them deal with their own mess. They had never cared about my struggles, so why should I care about theirs? But another part, the part that still remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike or my mother baking peach cobbler when I was little, ate away at me. What if I didn't go back and regretted it when it was too late? I called Sloan the next morning. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp and practical. "Don't let them guilt trip you," she said when I told her about the call. "They have been bleeding you dry for years. You don't owe them anything." I knew she was right. Sloan always kept it real, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to face them, not for them, but for me. If my father was truly sick, I didn't want to live with the what-ifs. I told her I would go back to their place, not to save them, but to close a chapter I had left open too long. I sat Jelani down that evening, explaining I would be gone for a few days. "Is Grandpa okay?" he asked with his small voice. I hated that he had to worry about a man he barely knew, thanks to my parents' absence in his life. "I don't know yet, baby," I told him, brushing his hair back, "but I will be back soon, and we will have pizza night, okay?" He nodded, trusting me completely. That trust was what kept me grounded. Packing for the trip felt surreal. I hadn't been to my parents' house in years, not since a tense Christmas visit when Jelani was 5. I booked a flight, arranged for Jelani to stay with a trusted neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, and called my boss to take a few days off. The whole time, my stomach was in knots. I wasn't just going back to a house, I was walking onto a battlefield. My mother's call wasn't just about my father's health or the house. It was a demand disguised as desperation. I knew they would ask for money, probably more than I could imagine. And Tavon, my brother, was likely lurking in the background, ready to benefit from whatever I gave. When the plane landed in Louisville, I felt a mix of dread and resolve. I rented a car and drove to the house I once called home. It looked smaller than I remembered. The paint peeling, the lawn overgrown. My mother met me at the door, her face pale but composed. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice softer than on the phone. I nodded, stepping inside, bracing myself for what was coming. My father, Luther, was in the living room, looking more frail than I had ever seen him, but his eyes still held that stubborn glint. Tavon wasn't there. Typical. They didn't waste time. Over coffee, my mother laid it all out. The bank was moving fast, and they needed me to step in. "You have the means," she said, her tone shifting from pleading to expectant. I listened without saying much, my mind already racing toward the confrontation I knew was inevitable. The next night, I agreed to stay for a family dinner. That was when everything fell apart. The dining table was set, but I wasn't prepared for the ambush. I had agreed to stay for the meal, expecting a civilized conversation, maybe some clarity on my father's health or the foreclosure looming over their heads. Instead, I walked into a trap. My parents had invited my brother Tavon, who strolled in late with his usual smirk plastered on his face. My mother waited on him hand and foot, piling food onto his plate, while my father sat at the head of the table with an unreadable, tense expression. I took a seat, my stomach tight, feeling the storm brewing. The first few minutes were deceptively quiet. My mother chattered about neighbors I didn't remember, her voice overly cheerful, as if trying to paper over the cracks. Tavon bragged about his latest business idea, some vague real estate venture that sounded just as shaky as the last one. I nodded politely, picking at my food, waiting for the real reason I was there. My father broke the silence, his voice low and deliberate. "Vesper, we need to talk about the house," he said, leaning forward. "The bank isn't budging. We owe $300,000, and they are ready to take everything." I put down my fork, meeting his gaze. "I know," I said carefully. "You told me yesterday. What is the plan?" My mother jumped in, her tone sharp. "The plan is you, Vesper. You are making good money, $350,000 a year, right? You could cover at least $200,000. It is the least you can do for the family." Her words landed like a punch. $200,000. Not a loan, not a discussion, just a demand, as if my life's work was theirs to claim. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "That is a lot of money," I said. "I have my own responsibilities, my son, my house, my future. Why does this fall on me?" My father's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. "You have always been selfish," he snapped. "We raised you, gave you everything, and now you are hoarding your money while we lose our home." I looked at him, stunned. Gave me everything? They had taken my inheritance. They had left me to fend for myself at 18, and now I was the selfish one? Tavon chimed in, his voice dripping with condescension. "Come on, Vesper. Don't play the victim. You are sitting pretty while we are drowning. Step up." I clenched my fists under the table, my blood boiling. They hadn't even asked about Jelani, who was back home safe with the neighbor. They didn't care about my life, my sacrifices, only what I could give them. I was about to respond when my mother leaned forward, her smile cold and calculating. "You and that boy of yours ain't nothing but parasites," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "Living off our sacrifices, acting like you are better than us." The word parasites hit me like a blade, but it was the mention of Jelani that broke something inside me. My son, the child who had never asked for anything but my love, was not their punching bag. I pushed my chair back, standing up, my voice low but steady. "Don't you dare bring my son into this," I said, staring her dead in the eye. "You have no right to speak about him or me that way." My father scoffed, his face red. "Show some respect, girl. We are your parents." I almost laughed at the irony. Respect from the people who had taken everything from me. I turned to Tavon, my eyes burning. "And you," I said, my voice sharp as a knife. "You have ridden on their excuses your whole life, letting them beg for you. Don't tell me how to live." His smirk vanished, but he stayed silent. My mother tried to speak, her voice rising. "Vesper, you owe us. We are family." I cut her off. My patience had shattered. Family doesn't demand what I have earned. Family doesn't insult my son. You want to call us parasites? Fine. I am done. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was rock solid. I looked from my father to my mother, then to Tavon, and I made my choice. "I am done letting you walk all over me," I said, every word deliberate. "I am taking control of this, for me and for Jelani, not for you." My mother laughed, her tone dripping with scorn. "Take control? You have always been a dreamer, Vesper. You will never outdo us." I held her gaze unflinching. "Keep talking. You will see." The room went silent. Their faces were a mix of shock and disdain. My father slammed his hand on the table, his voice a growl. "You think you are better than us? You ain't nothing without this family." I didn't flinch. I had spent years building my life, and their words couldn't touch me anymore. I walked out of the dining room, my hands steady, my mind racing with a plan. I called Sloane that night, her voice a lifeline. "Are you really done with them?" she asked, her tone a mix of concern and pride. "I have to be," I said. "For Jelani? For me." She didn't argue, just promised to help. I knew the fight was far from over. I thought the worst was over, but my mother had other plans. 2 days after the dinner, my phone started blowing up with notifications. Friends, coworkers, even Jelani's football coach sent me messages. "Have you seen this?" I opened TikTok, and there it was. A video from my mother's account. Her face was streaked with tears, her voice shaking with rehearsed emotion. "My daughter abandoned us," she said, clutching a tissue. "She has all this money, but she won't help her own family save our home. She has turned her back on her own blood." The caption read, "Ungrateful daughter lets parents lose everything." It had thousands of views, hundreds of comments calling me heartless, selfish, a disgrace. My stomach churned. Odessa had taken our fight public, twisting the truth to paint me as the villain. I sat on my hotel bed staring at the screen, my hands shaking with anger. She hadn't just insulted me. She had dragged Jelani into this, implying he was part of my so-called betrayal. I wanted to fight back, post my own video, tell the world how she and my father took my inheritance, how they called us parasites. But I knew better. Reacting with anger would only feed her narrative. I needed to be smarter, strategic. I called Sloane, my advisor, who picked up immediately. "I saw the video," she said before I could speak. "It is messy, Vesper. What do you want to do?" I paced the room, my mind racing. "I want to take control," I said, my voice steady despite the rage. "I am not going to be bullied into submission, not this time." Sloane didn't hesitate. "Then hit them where it hurts, the house. They are desperate to keep it. You have the means. Buy it out from under them." The idea sparked something in me. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming what they had tried to take from me, my power, my dignity. I told her to start the process, and she promised to connect me with a lawyer in the morning. The next day I met with a real estate attorney Sloane recommended, a sharp sister named Imani. She laid out the situation. The bank was ready to foreclose on my parents' house due to their default on the $300,000 loan. Imani confirmed I could buy the note directly from the bank, eliminating their claim. "It ain't cheap," she warned, "but your finances can handle it. You would own the house outright, and they wouldn't have any leverage." I nodded, my resolve hardening. This wasn't about saving them. It was about ending their hold on me. Sloane worked her magic, pooling my savings, investments, and a loan I could comfortably manage. Within a week, we had a deal with the bank. I signed the papers, my hand steady, as I became the legal owner of the house I had grown up in. It felt surreal, like closing a wound I had carried for years. But I wasn't done. I had Imani draft a contract. My parents could stay in the house, but only if they agreed to pay back the $300,000 in 5 years with interest. If they missed one payment, they were out. It was a lifeline, but one with strings attached, my strings. I didn't tell them right away. I wanted the news to land with weight. Instead, I had Imani send an official notice to my parents and Tavon outlining the new reality. I owned the house, and they were tenants subject to my terms. The notice also included a cease and desist letter demanding Odessa take down the TikTok video and stop spreading lies. Defamation has consequences, Imani wrote, her words crisp and unyielding. I knew my mother would see it as a slap in the face, but I didn't care. She crossed a line, and I was done playing nice. When the notice arrived, my mother called, her voice shrill with fury. "You think you can control us, Vesper?" she spat. "You ain't better than us, flashing your money around like you are some big shot." I let her rant. My silence was louder than her words. "Did you get the notice?" I asked finally. "Abide by it or face the consequences." I hung up, my heart racing, but my conscience clear. Tavon texted me later, a single line. "You are ruthless." I didn't reply. He wasn't wrong, but I didn't feel sorry either. I flew back to Louisville that weekend, picking up Jelani from the neighbor's house. He ran to me, his smile brighter than the sun. "Did you fix everything?" he asked, his voice full of trust. I hugged him tight, a lump in my throat. "I am on it, kid," I said. I didn't tell him about the house or the video. Not yet. He didn't need to carry that weight. But I knew this fight was far from over. My mother's silence after the call felt too calculated, like she was plotting her next move. I sat with Sloan that night, reviewing the paperwork. "You are playing a dangerous game," she said, her tone half warning, half admiration. "They aren't going to take this lying down." I nodded, looking at the contract in my hands. I had taken a stand, but I was ready for whatever came next. My mother's silence didn't last long. A week after the legal notice arrived, I got a call from Imani, my lawyer. "They are refusing to sign the contract," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Your parents claim they don't owe you anything and are demanding to stay in the house." I wasn't surprised. Odessa and Luther had spent their lives dodging responsibility, always twisting the narrative to suit them. But this time, I held the cards. I owned the house now, every square foot, and their refusal just sealed their fate. I told Imani to proceed with the eviction. "No more chances," I said, my voice steady. They made their choice. The eviction process wasn't quick, but it was thorough. Imani filed the necessary paperwork, and a court date was set. My parents fought back, of course. Odessa sent me a barrage of texts, each sharper than the last. "You are tearing this family apart," she wrote. "How can you do this to your own blood?" I didn't reply. Her words stung, but they didn't change my mind. She had called Jelani a parasite, smeared my name on TikTok, and expected me to bankroll her mistakes. Luther's messages were colder, more direct. "You will regret this, Vesper." I saved every text, every voicemail, handing them over to Imani as proof of their hostility. Tavon stayed quiet for the most part, but I knew he was in the background, egging them on. He had always been their golden boy, the one they propped up while putting me down. When Imani delivered the eviction notice in person, she told me Tavon was there, his face pale but his mouth shut. He didn't dare confront me directly, not after I had called him out at dinner. The notice gave them 30 days to vacate. If they didn't, the sheriff would intervene. I didn't want it to come to that, but I was prepared. I had spent too long letting them walk all over me, and I wasn't about to fold now. By the end of the month, they were gone. Imani confirmed they had moved out, leaving the house in disarray, boxes half-packed, furniture shoved against walls like they had left in a huff. I flew back to Louisville to inspect the property. Walking through the rooms felt strange, like stepping into a memory I didn't want to relive. The kitchen where my mother once baked cobbler was now cluttered with dirty dishes. My old bedroom, where I dreamed of a future beyond their reach, had turned into a storage room for Tavon's failed ventures. I didn't linger. I hired a cleaning crew and put the house up for rent. The income would cover the loan I had taken to buy it, and whatever was left would go into Jelani's college fund. I learned later that my parents had rented a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Luther's health was still fragile, but he was managing, according to a mutual acquaintance. They had found part-time jobs, Odessa at a grocery store, Luther doing bookkeeping for a local business. For the first time in years, they were forced to stand on their own 2 feet. Tavon, predictably, had moved in with them, still chasing his next big scheme. I didn't care to know the details. Their lives were no longer my burden. Cutting ties with them was harder than I expected. Not because I wanted their approval. I had given up on that years ago, but because letting them go meant closing a door I had always hoped might open to something better. I blocked their numbers, deleted their voicemails, and unfollowed Odessa's TikTok account. The video she had posted was gone now, taken down after Imani's cease and desist letter, but the comments lingered in my mind. Strangers had called me cruel, a bad daughter, without knowing the years of betrayal behind it. I had to remind myself that their opinions didn't matter. I knew my truth, and that was enough. Jelani became my anchor. When I got back home, he was waiting for me with a drawing he had made, a rocket ship soaring past the moon, his dream of being an astronaut in every line. "For you, Mom," he said with a wide grin. I hugged him, my heart full. Every choice I had made, the house, the fight, the eviction, was for him, to show him what it means to stand up for yourself. We spent that weekend planting flowers in our backyard, something we had been talking about for months. As we dug into the soil, Jelani asked about his grandparents. "Are they mad at us?" he asked in his small voice. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "They are mad at themselves," I said. "But we are good, you and me. We got each other." He nodded, satisfied, and went back to planting. That moment, his trust in me, was worth more than any apology I could ever receive. Sloan was there through it all, calling with her usual no-nonsense advice. "You are free now," she said one night over coffee. "They can't touch you anymore." She was right, but freedom came with a weight. I had spent so long defining myself against my parents' failures, their demands, their betrayal. Now I had to figure out who I was without that struggle. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects, mentoring younger colleagues. I wanted Jelani to see a mother who wasn't just surviving, but thriving. My team at the tech company noticed the shift. My focus was sharper, my confidence unshakable. I wasn't just a product manager anymore. I was someone who had reclaimed her life. I thought about Darius, my ex-husband, a few times during those months. He had stayed out of the drama, true to his hands-off approach. When he called to check on Jelani, kept it civil. "You doing all right, Vesper?" he said once, his voice softer than usual. I didn't need his validation, but it felt like a small acknowledgement of how far I had come. Jelani deserved a father who was present, even if it was just through phone calls and birthday cards. I made sure those lines stayed open for his sake. Looking back, the lesson wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about the house, the money, or even the pain they had caused. It was about respect, something my parents never understood. Family isn't just blood. It is the people who see you, who lift you up, who fight for you as hard as you fight for them. My parents and Tavon chose themselves every time. I chose Jelani, Sloan, and the life I had built from nothing. That is what family means to me now. I still drive past the old house sometimes when I'm in that part of the city. It is rented out to a young couple now. Their kids' bikes are scattered across the lawn. It is just a house, not a home. Not to me. Not anymore. Jelani's laughter fills my house, our house, with a warmth I never knew growing up. I don't know if my parents ever learned their lesson, and I don't need to know. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.